Trump calls Capitol attack an insurrection hoax as public hearings set to begin. Former president intensifies attacks on Liz Cheney at Wyoming rally and endorses her Republican primary challenger in midterm election. As the House committee investigating the attack on the U.S. Capitol by extremist supporters of Donald Trump prepares to start public hearings next week, the former president called the insurrection on January 6, 2021. Trump spoke at a rally in Wyoming on Saturday night in support of the Republican primary challenger in the midterm elections to Congresswoman Liz Cheney. Cheney sits on the committee and has been vilified by Trump since she voted in favor of his historic second impeachment over the insurrection. Addressing the subcapacity crowd at a rally in Casper for Republican candidate Harriet Hageman, Trump slammed Cheney, saying, "As one of the nation's leading proponents of the insurrection hoax, Liz Cheney has pushed a grotesquely false, fabricated, hysterical partisan." He added, "Look at the so-called word insurrection, January 6th, what a lot of crap." Trump was impeached by the House of Representatives a week after a violent mob broke into the U.S. Capitol to try in vain to prevent a joint session of Congress certifying Democrat Joe Biden's victory over Republican Trump in the 2020 presidential election. Trump was accused of inciting the deadly insurrection because he held a rally near the White House that morning, during which he urged the crowd to go to the Capitol and fight like hell to overturn the election result. Then as the violent mob, many carrying Trump banners, broke into the Capitol and rampaged through corridors, offices and chambers, attacking vastly outnumbered police officers and sending Democrats and Republicans fleeing for their lives, Trump ignored calls from colleagues and relatives to publicly call his supporters off and only hours later went on TV mildly. Trump was acquitted at his impeachment trial by the U.S. Senate. A bipartisan Senate report later linked 7 deaths to the Capitol attack on January 6. Lawmakers called for an independent commission to be created, similar to one set up after the terrorist attacks on the U.S. on September 11, 2001, to investigate the events on and leading up to January 6 and the involvement of the Trump Republicans in the Senate killed that move, so the House last summer formed a select committee to investigate the insurrection, chaired by Mississippi Democratic Congressman Benny Thompson but also including Republicans Adam Kinzinger and Cheney, the daughter of former Vice President Dick Cheney. The committee has since gathered mountains of evidence and taken testimony from numerous witnesses behind closed doors, while being stonewalled by many senior Republicans, and accuses Trump of attempting to lead a tie. The committee is due to hold a series of public hearings beginning 9th of June and expects to present a report before the midterm elections in November. Separately, the Department of Justice is also investigating events on and surrounding the Capitol attack, led by the U.S. Attorney General, Merrick Garland. Late on Sunday, the committee suffered a setback in its efforts to access, prior to the hearings, a set of internal Republican National Committee documents relating to possible actions to boost lies that the election was stolen from Trump that may have ginned up the mob on 6 January. A legal battle over the desired materials may not be resolved for several months, Politico reported. At the rally in Wyoming, Trump appeared to lament the treatment of those arrested for taking part in the Capitol attack, while falsely claiming that anti-fascist and Black Lives Matter movement anti-racism activists have killed. "Look what they're doing to these people," he said. More than 800 people have been charged with federal crimes relating to the riot on January 6, in the biggest federal criminal investigation since the 9/11 terrorist attack. At least 300 have already pleaded guilty, mostly to misdemeanors, and nearly 200 have been sentenced. Approximately 100 others have trial dates. In the latest court cases, Matthew Mark Wood, of North Carolina, pleaded guilty last Friday to charges that he stormed the Capitol, including a felony charge of obstructing an official proceeding, and will be sentenced. He entered the Capitol by climbing through a smashed window and followed others who had overcome police through corridors and into House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's office. Also last Friday, Matthew Joseph Buckler, of Maryland, pleaded guilty and will be sentenced in July for parading, demonstrating or picketing in a Capitol building after also entering through a window breached by the mob. It was ruled in court that the former top leader of the far-right, violent group the Proud Boys, Henry Enrique Tarrio, will remain jailed while awaiting trial on charges that he conspired with other members of the extremist group to take part in the insurrection. Tarrio, a South Florida resident, has been indicted on charges including conspiracy. Why Trump isn't to blame for the nation's toxic political tribalism. The man who wrote the definitive work on how Americans have become splintered by their politics says the problem has only gotten worse, but there is a solution. In 2008, in an increasingly politically polarized country, both presidential candidates attempted to present themselves as post-partisan choices. John McCain was seen as a maverick, less beholden than others to the dogmatic demands of the Republican Party, while Barack Obama offered the possibility to bridge not only racial divides but the growing gullies between red and blue on the election. It was a nice idea. Bill Bishop knew it wasn't true. That spring, after all, Bishop had published The Big Sort, Why the Clustering of Like-Minded America is Tearing Us Apart. It put hard numbers and gave a catchy name to something people from coast to coast already were feeling. Americans were getting more and more divided, sorted, as it were, based on income, occupation and education, religion, lifestyle and worldview. And that in turn was having drastic political implications. The statistics backed him up. In 1976, 26.8% of voters lived in landslide counties, that is, in which the winner in the presidential election won by more than 20%. In 1996, it was 42.1%, and by 2004, it was nearing half. Americans are increasingly unlikely to find themselves in mixed political company, Bishop wrote. Pockets of like-minded citizens that have become so ideologically inbred, as he put it, that we don't know, can't understand, and can barely conceive of those people who lived differently, thought if people weren't picking presidents, they were choosing sides. At a moment when the country is contending with its bitterest and most intractable issues, reproductive rights and gun control, I called Bishop for his perspective on whether Americans are in any better shape to overcome the crippling tribalism he documented. He was not encouraging. Bishop is 68 now and retired from a journalism career that took him from Kentucky to Texas, where he helped found and still is a contributing editor for the Daily Yonder, which covers rural issues. 5 or so years after his book came out, he moved from blue, cosmopolitan Austin to red, rural LaGrange, a conscious effort to follow his own advice. Mixed company moderates, like-minded company polarizes, he wrote in The Big Sort, and resort himself onto the other side of that decision is part of the reason he managed to end our conversation on a somewhat hopeful note about the ability of communities to transcend national politics and act cooperatively on tough problems.